parents were actual communists, he was too. He now spends more time fighting for the other side and is probably one of the biggest American heroes alive today. I want you to meet him. Next, David Horowitz is a guy who has just put out a new book called A Point in Time, The Search for Redemption in This Life and the Next. I just asked David, I asked him in the hallway, I said, David, why did you write, are you dying? Because this is a very philosophical book, and you're not dying, are you?
No, I'm not.
All right.
I've written 3 books about mortality, though. But
why are you fascinated by it?
Well, I'm 72 years old.
You are not. Are you really?
Yeah. I had a prostate cancer 10 years ago, actually, right after 9/11. And when you get, you're still young, Glenn, but when you get sort of pushing 70, you have to think about final things. I mean,
man, you just do not look 70. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that. You just to put you into context for anybody who doesn't know, give it a little bit of a history of your childhood and the 60s.
I was born into a communist family. Both my parents were card-carrying members, and our whole community was communist. I was one of the founders of the New Left in the 60s, and the New Left was really founded by children of communists. That's how it was founded, who felt that Stalin had tainted socialism, and we were going to revive it. Not that we were going to change it, but we were going to revive it, but make it palatable to ordinary people.
Did you hang out with people like Bill Ayers?
Yeah, I interviewed Bill Ayers. I despised Bill Ayers even when I was a Marxist revolutionary. But he was a rich kid who was thoughtless, who boasted that and this is when he was a senior in college, that he hadn't read a book in a year, and yet was playing with people's lives. He was a violent and destructive human being. I despised him. But I knew them all. I knew Hayden. I knew Hayden pretty well, actually, Tom Hayden.
How have you? I'm getting to the reflective part here, and
Yes.
And your book is, I have to tell you, by page 4, I said to myself, this is one of the most beautifully written books I have read in a long time. By page 8, and I have to make decisions on what books I'm going to read all the way through, quickly. By page 8, and this usually does not happen by page 8. By page 8, I knew it's a book I'm going to read all the way through. I mean, it's really, really well done.
Thank you.
But
put a lot of work into that.
Tell me, how you have. Here you are, a guy who knows it inside and out, and then people like me come along who don't know it. I didn't know, David, when the first time we talked, I didn't even know who you really were. I didn't really know what progressivism was. I didn't believe in communists hanging around, and I didn't believe in any of that stuff. How have you stood as a sentinel for so long with so much hatred, so everybody has tried to destroy you, without losing your mind, knowing what was happening to our country, and nobody would listen?
I was actually brought up that way, when you think about it. My parents were communists in the darkest moments of the Cold War. So we were an isolated community. My school fights were over Russia. So I was really brought up to this, in this way. And to use a terrible California term, I mean, I'm living out a karma. I felt I had to take what I knew and resolve it in the end. And this book really, A Point in Time, is a summation. It's a small book, but it took me 3 years to write, because I I thank you for recognizing that.
No, it's really nice. It's beautiful.
So I tried to make it.
So what did you?
So people,
what'd you find?
The heart of the book is this and that. You know, it's like you have to ask yourself, why do people hate America? Who could hate America? Why do they hate conservatives the way they do? You can see it every time they practically open their mouths. They hate us. And I understand this in my bones because, you know, I grew up in
the hate.
In the hate. And what it comes from is a vision of a future in which is perfect, where there's no racism, no sexism, no war, no poverty, social justice, where there's a world that's just and perfect. That's, if you believe that you can achieve that, then anybody who stands in your way, well, first of all, you see yourself as the army of the saints, and everybody who's opposing you is the party of Satan. And if you think of hellfire and damnation preachers, you understand that's what liberals are.
Well, you see it in
that's their vision.
You see it in Al Gore.
Oh, of course.
You see it and anybody who's on this climate thing is, if you disagree with it, you're directly from hell.
Exactly. And so then I had to ask myself, where does this come from? And it's interesting. I mean, if you look at it, you can see the decline of organized religion sort of comes from around Darwin. And that's when you have the rise of socialism, communism, fascism.
Progressivism.
Right. All these secular isms are really searches for redemption, but in this life and achieved by human beings.
This is where President Obama gets the collective salvation that he is always preaching about, which is the exact opposite of, if you're a Christian, the exact opposite understanding of what Christ did.
Exactly.
There is no collective salvation.
Exactly. And the one sort of addition you have to make to that is the Islamists who believe in redeeming this world. They're not religious in the sense, I mean, a true Christian or a true Jew understands that only God can make it right. There's an angel with a flaming sword at the gates of Eden, which was our paradise, preventing us from returning. You can only return through a divinity. And Genesis is a very profound understanding and statement about human beings.
Hang on, say that again. That is such an important statement about the Garden of Eden. Say that again.
Yeah, when God expelled us from the Garden of Eden, he put an angel with a flaming sword to prevent us from returning. And the message there is that we're the problem. It's not society. Society is just a reflection of who we are. We are the problem, and we can't fix it. If you understand that, then you are a conservative. If you think that the human problem can be fixed by other human beings, then you're a leftist, and you're a very dangerous person.
Okay, so the left, I believe there are two categories in the left. There are those who really do have this hope, this idealistic hope, and they're generally young, that think, oh, you know what, we can get past that. We can have a big government that can just get rid of all the bad guys. But it's a simpleton's understanding of the human condition.
It's a youthful.
Yes.
Because youth do not understand what people. You have to have been through life, have been betrayed.
Over and over again. And even been betrayed by good people who were your good friends, who just had a moment in time where they just went off the tracks, and all of a sudden they're betraying people.
And then you have to see into yourself and see your own weaknesses.
Correct.
So
there's those people, and then there's the nasty ones that really know, that are just doing it for power and.
Well, exactly. And you start off as an idealist, but when you go out. Chanting, as was the big slogan for my generation, hey, hey, LBJ, how many kids did you kill today? Now, I remember as a leftist thinking, would I rather be a hostage or a prisoner to Lyndon Johnson or Ho Chi Minh? Where would my chances be better? And that was, one of the beginnings of my understanding how wrong we were. So it can start with an idealism, but that ideal, the higher the ideal, the more beautiful the idea of what you can achieve in this life, the more destruction and the more hate will enter your soul. Because
unless it's based on the individual ideal,
it's different.
Yeah.
If you're talking about the salvation of an individual soul, it's very different. A truly religious person understands that we see through a glass darkly, and only after we die will we see face to face, assuming that there is a meaning and an order to the universe. And of course, nobody knows. You can't know. And that's why it's a matter of faith.
David, I have to tell you, you were raised in this hatred. You have a reason to hate. So many people have spent their entire life trying to destroy you. I know what this is like from the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it is exhausting. It really is exhausting. And I have found my way of being able to find meaning in what I do and find meaning in their hate. And I'm actually growing in love. I actually am less angry today than I was 4 years ago, which I think is a miracle in and of itself. How did you do that?
Well, it's been a lot easier since Obama was elected, because
it's out in the open.
It's in the open, and conservatives have finally waked up. And conservatives were very kind to me, considering who I had been. I mean, I was a leader of the New Left. And it's one thing when you first give it up and make the statement, okay, everybody is happy. But I've been sustained by conservative support, and that made it somewhat easier. But now there are so many. Well, I have to say, you had the biggest influence on releasing me from the frustrations of being a Cassandra. Suddenly, I see. I mean, I feel very much at peace now. I feel that if I had to leave this earth, there are torchbearers behind me, and you are the leading one.
That is
in that case. I used to when I watched your show, especially when you were when I was first getting to know it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was just so happy. There's a certain sadness that I have because I feel our country is at stake, and America is completely unique. I mean, there's no other country in the world like it. It's an experiment in democracy that others have tried to follow, but if we're gone, it's gone.
All right. I want to spend just a couple more minutes with you. I have to take a quick break. I can't recommend all of David Horowitz.